Welcome, everybody. We'll be getting started in just about 3 minutes. Yay! Good morning, everybody. It's so great to see you guys. This is Todd from the Grouper Moon Project for our third live stream. We are live out at the spawning aggregation site, which is why I'm a little wobbly on my feet right now. But we've got a couple more classrooms joining. I don't want to get started until everyone's here, so we're gonna just be patient for maybe one more minute and let some more people join, and then we're gonna get started. Okay? I'm so excited you're here. Okay, good morning, everybody. So today, our third live stream. We are on the Grouper Moon Project out on that spawning aggregation site on Little Cayman. We are just above thousands of very large, getting ready to spawn grouper. And we've been out here this morning. The scientists have already been down and researchers have already been down for one dive, doing tagging or doing counting and taking photographs and doing fish faces, all of the stuff that we've already talked about this week they've been doing. And I'm going to introduce you to some of those people that just came up out of the water. And then you're going to see some of the scientists jump in the water, getting ready to go do some of that same work. And then part together. Exciting. I'm so glad y'all are here. So hold on one second, and I'm going to turn my screen around so I'm facing the other direction. Okay, so you guys are getting a tour of the boat. There's Dr. Bryce.
Hi.
And here is Dr. Christy Patton-Gill-Simmons. Hi, Christy.
Hey, guys.
What are you getting ready to do?
I'm getting ready to go on a dive. I'm going to be doing some tag counts with my slate.
Awesome.
And some fish faces with my camera.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's see, Dylan, did you just get up from a dive?
Yeah, I just came up. I was doing fish faces.
You did fish faces?
Yep.
Awesome. And Cody, you guys know Cody.
Hey.
What are you working on? Are you about to go down, Cody?
Yeah, I'm about to go down and do a stereo video that I was telling you guys about the other day.
That's right. So Cody's going to go down and do some stereo video. Are you guys able to hear okay? Hillary, can you give me a nod if you guys can hear it? Yeah, okay, great. Thank you. All right, and over here, Hal,
Hello.
what's going on down there?
Well, I was down doing some fish face filming.
Yep.
And it's pretty calm and beautiful, and the fish are aggregating off the wall as we like to see.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. And look here, we've got Dr. Steve Giddings.
Yeah, I just got back from a dive where I was doing fish counts. We had these tagged fish down there, 130 something tagged fish.
Wow.
And I would do counts of 50. And on my data sheet, just record the number of fish in that 50 that had tags in them. So you get a lot of zeros, a lot of ones, a couple twos. So not too many, which means there's a lot of untagged fish, which means there's a lot of fish on the bottom. So I was probably in a big school of about 2,000 or so fish doing these counts over and over and over again. And I did 32 counts on this dive.
Awesome. And as you guys can see, the seas are beautiful today. Pretty flat, calm, a beautiful day. There's Ivan, our captain. Ivan, thanks for waving over here. And we've got Dr. Croy McCoy, who's being backlit. So I'm gonna have you come over here. Have you been down in the water today, Dr. McCoy?
Not as yet. Being surface support today.
Surface support today. Awesome. And I think we have another person over here. Some of you guys know who this is.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda. Hi everyone at Cayman International School watching and my grade 2 students. I'm about to go down for a dive and I'll be doing fish counts. So I'll be counting 50 Nassau Grouper and recording how many of them are tagged and then counting to 50 again.
Awesome. Well, I hope you guys have an awesome dive and we'll see you hopefully when you come back up.
Sounds good.
Oh yeah, Steve, Dr. Giddings has one more thing he'd like to share with you.
Yeah, I'd like to give this to you because I don't want it anymore. It's a flooded camera.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that happens now and then. It's a little GoPro that flooded on the last dive just because of, I don't know why.
Why did you do that, Steve?
Well, I didn't choose to, but I
Okay.
came up and I noticed a lot of water inside the housing. Opened it up and the battery was already ruined. And
Oh
so
no.
this camera's on its way to the dump.
Yep.
That happens.
No good. All right. Casualty of the Grouper Moon project.
Electronics and saltwater, no good.
All right. And here we are. We're going to come back into the hall here, and I'm going to turn you guys back around. Yeah? Oh, yeah. One more thing. Sorry. So Bryce has got the stereoscopic camera.
Okay, one more time.
Very official.
All right. Thank you.
Why do we do the slate? Just so that you know which day and everything that is?
You know, the slate actually, we can do it for that too, but the slate actually, when that arm comes down and it touches,
Yeah.
that's a contact point that we can use to pair up or sync the video on these two cameras precisely. And that's part of our stereo video process to allow us to have both cameras perfectly in tandem videoing the same thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And Cody's going to take it down and go and catch some great video of fish.
And there's Cody. He's all suited up and ready to go. All right. Awesome. You divers have a great dive, and we'll see you in a little bit. Okay. So now,
You and Cody are
give me 1 second while I flip that camera back around.
try on each other. I'm gonna do some fish faces at the beginning and then count.
Okay.
Cody's scared.
So while they're all getting ready to go in the water, I'm come back inside. Otherwise, it's too loud out there. And apologize for my sweatiness, but it is warm this morning. So as you guys know, today is a underwater live stream from the SPAG, the spawning aggregation site. And this is the 10th year that we've been coming out here and doing this with the same equipment, the same audio visual underwater equipment we've been using the whole time. And sadly, audio is not working at all. The cables became too corroded from salt in the air. And so what we've done is one of our divers just went down and he took a 20-minute video going through and showing you guys everything that's down there. And we're going to walk you through it and tell you, and we haven't seen this video. It literally just came up. But telling us that it's time for us to get some new underwater equipment on the Grouper Moon project. But in any case, I'm really excited to show you guys the footage that we have. I hope you guys are all ready. When we're done sharing the footage, we'll have time for Q&A for you guys. So if you have questions coming up, then hold on to those, write them down, and at the end we'll have time for you guys to answer to ask those questions. Okay, so we're gonna now go underwater. Hold on 1 second. Just a sec. So sweaty. Why? Nope, because we are on.
Do entire screen maybe. I'll just maximize that.
All right. So here we are. I'm going to get this dive started, and Bryce and Croy are going to be here, and they're going to narrate you guys the dive. So here we have one of the divers, one of our researchers, Tom, and let's go. Let's see what's down there.
So hi everybody. Super awesome to be here with you all. Yeah, this is video that Tom just recently collected for us. We haven't had a chance to see this yet, but there should be some good surprises on here based on what Tom told us. You're looking at Tom's video as he's coming up on the fish. You notice you can see in the background the corals and sponges and soft corals. This is right at the shelf edge where it drops down to over 1,000 feet. And up ahead is Tom's dive buddy. That's Dr. Ali Candelmo. They're both on scooters. They're underwater vehicles that allow the scuba divers to move faster than just kicking with their fins alone. And this helps us, the scientists, sometimes to look for the fish if we're not sure where they are. And on this particular dive, we didn't know exactly where they were. But what we're seeing is Ali start to come up on these grouper now. So they've just started to see them.
Hold on, I just want to be sure everyone's able to see and hear us okay. Are you guys able to? Okay. Were you able to see that okay? Okay, we'll go right back to it. I just wanted to double check.
We're going to be right into the grouper probably. So go to the, you're still on full screen? Okay. Yeah.
Right?
So,
okay. I can't tell. I think it was working. Yeah. All right. Okay. There we go.
okay. Well, in that brief window of time, what you've seen is Ali has actually found a small group of fish that are all grouped up together. So these are all Nassau Grouper. You can see maybe in the background, there's a smaller school up in the shallows. That's actually horse-eyed jacks. And it's important to know that not just Nassau Grouper are spawning at this site. There are, in fact, many different species that use this exact same site in order to reproduce, in order to make new babies. So as Dr. Croy McCoy pointed out, this really is a maternity ward here in the Cayman Islands. And it's important. It's an important place for lots of different species to reproduce. As you're seeing Tom kind of move around, what Tom is actually doing, he's not just trying to take pretty pictures of fish. He's actually collecting images that we can use to identify individual Nassau Grouper. So as we get close to some of these fish, you can see that they have patterns, right? So you can see that they have markings on their side. That's a good example right there. Each fish has unique markings, just like if you turn to your friend right now in a classroom and you look at them, you know exactly who that is just based on looking at their face. But we can do the same thing with Nassau Grouper by looking at the patterns. And to do that, we use...
Hey, Bryce, hold on. We're having technical difficulties. Hold on, guys. Yeah, no video showing. We're going to start that over. So give us 1 second. My apologies. That's what I was trying to figure out what was going on. We're going to start that all the way over.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. We're starting back at the beginning. Let's do it again. Okay. All right. Take two, my friends. Take two. So this is actually the very start of the video. And here we see a close-up of Dr. Ellie Kandama, one of our research scientists here on the project. Actually, individual drop cameras or GoPros with floats that she's going to use to put down on the reef to capture additional video while we're not at the site, while we're not diving. Those videos will be running constantly so that we can analyze those later to look for fish. It's one of the various different ways that we capture information from the spawning site. I'm going to jump ahead here just so that we don't watch Allie as she scoots down the reef edge. But I should point out, you can probably see it now, hopefully, she's got a scooter on the back of her tank. And sometimes some of our divers will use those scooters in order to get to the Nassau Grouper.
And the scooter is what, like a little propeller? Or?
It's a little propeller. It's like a little torpedo on your back. Yeah, that moves you forward in the water. Those fish are not Nassau Grouper. Those are horse-eyed jack. And you probably heard me say this before, but many different species come to this site in order to spawn, including horse-eyed jack. So we've been seeing them spawn on multiple nights now. And so many species are using this exact same location in order to create new baby fish. So it's a really important site for lots of different species here in the Cayman Islands. And yeah, look at those big, beautiful barrel sponges. You guys see those? Those big, it looks like bowls underwater. Those are really cool. They're not that common to see so many big barrel sponges like that, but it's just because of the site. That site is right on the very shelf break, right where the shelf drops down to very, very deep water. And it's a good place to be as a sponge because it brings up all that deep, cold, nutrient-rich water that's got a lot of energy and food in it, so those sponges can filter it. So that's how you know often when you're at a spot that's really, really close to a deep drop-off. Okay, so we're watching Allie scoot down the wall, move closer and closer towards the fish. Let's jump ahead a little bit, and here we are. Allie and Tom have just now come up on the fish. And those are Nassau Grouper. So that's a big school, a tight ball of Nassau Grouper. I'll let you guys guess as to how many you think there are. That's an exercise that we as scientists have to do every single dive. Every single dive, I ask all of the scientists that are on a dive to tell me how many fish they think they saw. And we use that information in order to estimate, was one of our pieces of information to estimate how many fish are at the spawning site. So as we get close to the fish, as I said before, it's worth pointing out that Tom isn't just trying to collect beautiful scenery. He's actually trying to get as many individual fish relatively close in frame as he can. And the reason he's doing that is because these individual fish look different. So like your friend next to you in the classroom there, you can recognize them just by looking at their face or the way what they're wearing. Same thing with Nassau Grouper. They look different. And we can use artificial intelligence, computer technology, just like your phone. If you have a phone that recognizes your face, we can do the same thing with Nassau Grouper, it turns out. And they have the same patterning on the sides that lasts year over year. And that information is super important to us because we can keep track of individual fish over time. So we know that, let's say let's call the fish Bob the fish, we know that he grew maybe 2 centimeters over the course of a year. We know whether or not they survived from one year to the next. All of that information is really helpful for things like estimating growth and survival of individual fish in the population. And we use that information in a fisheries management context to estimate how many fish are there and how fast that population is growing. And all of that is important for maintaining healthy fish populations here in the Cayman Islands, both in terms of fish that are you can see them on the reef as a diver, but also fish are available for being caught throughout the rest of the year when they're not spawning.
Bryce, can you point out the camera that is being used right there? Did you talk about
Absolutely.
that?
No, I haven't. But yeah, so I mentioned Bob the fish, remember? Well, he grew 2 centimeters. How do we know that? Well, that's the stereo video system. So you saw earlier Cody calibrating that system.
there it is underwater in action. That's Tammy, a CIDOE, Cayman Islands Department of Environment diver. And she is using that stereo video system to capture images of the fish that Tom is also capturing images of. That stereo video system pairs two cameras together that are spread apart, just like your eyes, and they both look forward. And the difference in terms of the distance between those cameras capturing the exact same image in front of them allows us to estimate depth or depth of field, how far away an object is from us. And because we can estimate that depth of field or the distance to the fish, we can then estimate the size of the fish. So any fish that's captured on that system you're seeing right there, hi Tammy, we can use to estimate the size of all of the fish that system captures. Now, the disadvantage, of course, of having eyes straight forward, like that camera, or like you and I, we're really good at telling depths, us humans, but we can't see what's coming at us from behind. We can't see the predator that's about to eat us from behind. Most fish have eyes that are pointing out to the side. So they're not great at telling depth, distances, but they're really good at seeing everything in 360, right? All the way around, so they can see when a predator is coming at them. So there's two different ways of eyes working. One gives you really good depth of field. This is called binocular vision. When fish are out to the side, they get huge field of view, but they sacrifice the ability to tell distance to objects. So that's our stereo video system. And here we have, this is Dr. Steve Giddings. He's one of the scientists, in fact, the lead scientist of the National Marine Sanctuaries program, but he comes down and volunteers with the project to help us collect information. You met him earlier. He was the one with the flooded camera. And it looks like on this dive, Steve was capturing counts of fish. So you can see him. If you could hear his brain right now, his brain. And of those 50 fish, he's keeping track of how many of them have tags in the side of those fish. So we've implanted about 100 tags in the many thousands of fish that are here. And these tags are visual tags, little spaghetti tags that are bright green. So he keeps track of how many of those fish have the tags over and over again on different counts. And from all of the counts that we have our divers do over the whole week, we can estimate the proportion of fish on the aggregation site that have tags in them. And that's important because if we can get that proportion, let's say it's 10% of all fish on the aggregation site are tagged, and we put in, let's say 100 tags, well, we know that 100 fish is 10% of the population. And because of that, we can estimate the size at 1,000 fish. That allows us another piece, probably the most valuable piece of information in order to estimate the total number of fish that are at the aggregation site. And we've been doing tagging as well as estimating by divers how many fish are at that aggregation site for almost 20 years now. And that information over time has allowed us to demonstrate the remarkable growth, not just in this population on Little Cayman, but also in Cayman Brac, where the population's grown by maybe 2 orders of magnitude. I mean, huge differences, starting at less than 1,000 fish here on Little Cayman and going up to 7,000 to 8,000 fish. Similarly on Brac, going from 500 fish to maybe as much as 3,000 fish or more. We haven't yet got over to Brac this season, where that's still to come. So there's an example of a tagged fish. Do you guys see that? So that's one of our few tagged fish in the population. And you can really see the green, right? That green spaghetti tag. There's another one. You guys see that? So that's an example of what Steve is looking for.
Did you talk about their different colorations that they're in right now?
I didn't. No. Yeah. So Todd's reminding me to talk about the different colorations. So you can see each of these different fish have a particular hue, a particular color. The ones that are currently in frame, those are almost all what we call dark phase, and they're very, very, very dark. They're off in the distance there. You see one that's bicolor. That's dark on the top and white on the belly, and it's got a white stripe through the eye. That bicolor fish, that's a really strong indication that they're ready to spawn. They're indicating their readiness to spawn. On nights of peak spawning, and we're not there yet, but on nights of peak spawning, almost all of these fish will be that really stark bicolor phase, white on the black on top and white through the eye. And then the white fish, that's we call that white belly, and that's another color phase.
I don't know.
We good?
Yeah. No, it's pre-recorded.
Hold on a second, friends.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Bye. Are you guys able to see the video? Okay, we just got a phone call that people were saying it's very choppy where you guys are. No, it's okay. So it might just be different for everyone. I apologize if you're having a hard time seeing this video, and I promise you that I will have this posted up on YouTube by later today. So if you in your classroom are having a hard time seeing it, just know that that's conditions out at field science and in the middle of the Caribbean, and sometimes it doesn't always agree with us, but we're going to keep going, okay? Bryce, will you come and talk about what's going on here?
Sure, yeah. So that's one of those big barrel sponges I was mentioning earlier. And see that Nassau Grouper? He's got his mouth wide open and he's holding still. In fact, we got a couple right there. And the reason he's got his mouth wide open is because right now there is a tiny little fish called a cleaning goby inside its mouth. And he's not eating it. He's holding his mouth open so that cleaning goby can get inside its mouth and pick parasites out from the inside of its mouth. So it's basically like a car wash for fish. And you can kind of see, I don't know how good the video quality is, but you can actually see now those cleaning gobies on the sides of that grouper. It's a tiny little fish. And so the fish pulls up and puts his head down, and that's an indication to the cleaning goby that, hey, I'm ready for getting cleaned. And that cleaning that's happening is something that will happen as long as the fish is there, and at some point he'll pull away and another fish will pull in and take its place. And so those barrel sponges are often home to those cleaning gobies, and many different species, not just Nassau Grouper, use that cleaning station over the course of the day. Okay, great. So the cleaning station is oftentimes a really good place for us to get a close-up video of the sides of the patterns. So you can see the patterning on that fish because they're holding so still. They don't want to leave because they're getting a good cleaning. So they're willing to sit still for us, even though we're getting really close to them. So as I said, the barrel sponges is a great place for cleaning stations for these fish. And what's interesting is we don't know whether or not they use cleaning stations more or less during the spawning season. You might expect that they're using them a little bit more, because they want to look spick and span for the big night. And we do see them using a lot of cleaning stations while they're at the spawning site. There'll often be a lineup of grouper waiting to get into the cleaning station. So sometimes there'll be squabbles over that spot where they'll kind of attack each other, each one trying to get priority to get clean first. So as we're kind of swimming away from that cleaning station, we're coming up on, oftentimes out at the aggregation site, these fish will be in different schools, right? So we'll see
Separate into different groups.
Yeah. And so as we're down there, we try not to just focus on one particular spot, one particular group of fish. We'll oftentimes move around to get to different locations. And so this is now what looks to be a different ball of fish than that first ball of Nassau Grouper that Tom and Allie came up on. And so now they're kind of banded up, and we see this quite a bit during the day. Yeah.
In fact, you want to see them banded up? We've been seeing them in different formations. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that and what you want to see when they're.
Yeah, the behavior throughout the day is very different. As the sun comes up, they get into a long band. As it gets higher, they sort of dissipate and more or less tuck themselves into the reef to avoid predation. And as the sun goes down, they group back into these balls again as groups for protection.
Yeah.
From predation.
And this looks like this dive. This was a nice dive, right? Is it always like this?
No. Usually it's very difficult. Wave action is actually high. Currents are strong. You name it. It's wet for us, and usually it's northwesters. And for some reason, the fish make it very difficult to do any research on them. But we always try to manage to do our best with it.
Yeah. So this is a really calm, low current dive, which we're lucky to have gotten this dive to pull this out of a camera and plop it in for you guys, because this looks beautiful. It's great video. It's perfect for showing you this is not normally how it is. Normally it's a little bit more currenty and challenging as a diver. And that's why for divers here on the aggregation site, the Cayman Islands Department of Environment makes sure that all of the divers are very proficient, and we do safety is a big priority here at the aggregation site. Yeah, so now you're seeing Allie. It looks like she's put out those GoPros that were in the bag, and you can see her kind of doing this with her finger. She's doing tag counts now as well. So she's counting 50 fish at a time and then writing down how many of those 50 fish she sees that have a tag. So we have all of our different divers do that at least a little bit. And so over the course of a whole spawning window, we'll do many, many hundreds of counts so we can get a really accurate proportion of fish that are.
Does their behavior change when you, like, how do you know when they're getting ready to spawn?
We mentioned a little bit, of the color for spawning, but nights and peak spawning, what would you say?
Leading up to the spawn, you see this bicolor of the leading up to the spawn. This keeps increasing, and that's one of the cues that we use to know the night of spawn is going to happen. So they get into a big group of fish, and they're all exhibiting this coloration that's very definitive that they're ready to have their babies.
So based on the color composition here, what would you say? Are we getting close to spawning yet?
Nowhere near.
Yeah, probably. I would agree with that. Oftentimes out here we'll have bets as to when we think the grouper are going to spawn. We've gotten pretty good over the years at it, and I think it's fair to say that we're at least a couple of days away at this point.
But they exhibit also courtship behavior. The males would nudge the bellies on the females and sort of courting them along the reef. And there's many cues that we use that we've observed over the past 15, 20 years, just on the behavior leading up to the spawn and of this particular fish. And that's what we use again to sort of predict the night of spawn.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out here too, you guys, that the Cayman Islands, this aggregation that you're looking at right here, this is more fish than anywhere else in the Caribbean in terms of an aggregation site by a lot, at least as far as we're aware. Of any of the known aggregation sites anywhere in the Caribbean, this one is by far the largest. So it's a really unique resource for the Cayman Islands. It's also a great opportunity for scientists to be able to study what a healthy aggregation looks like and how fish behave at a healthy aggregation. And that's why it's so critical that we get to do the research that we do out here. And it's something unique that the Cayman Islands allows us to do because you guys have done such an amazing job of protecting the resource.
I always use Belize as a barometer for our success here, because they had like 16 of these sites, and because of being overfished down to low numbers, they shut them down, and all year from throughout the whole, for 12 months, the whole year actually, in 1993, and they have not seen the recovery, possibly because of, enforcement issues or management issues. But, for these islands, we've managed to be able to not only bring the population back to having the largest in the whole region or the world per se, but we've also have a management plan that it's only closed 5 months out of the year, and the rest of the year you're allowed 5 fish per day, so it's at a sustainable level that we can all enjoy for, not only for our kids, but their kids, and moving on to the future. So it's a very, very a success story that everyone should be proud of, that we've managed to achieve.
Yeah, and it goes beyond just fisheries too. The Caymans has a very large population of big healthy predators, and having that higher level of the food web where you have top predators is really important to how the ecosystem functions and operates.
Yeah, such as like sharks and stuff. That's wherever you see a lot of sharks, it's a signature or indicative of a healthy coral fishery system, a coral reef system. The whole ecosystem is healthy in the areas that you find a large population of sharks, because it all has to maintain a balance. And I always use the phrase that, our bodies are fine, but you lose one finger, you're going to know.
Yeah.
Everything else wobbles in one sense. Ecosystems are the same. So, any malfunction of any little small part of it has far-reaching consequences.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm wondering, do you guys notice their behavior changing as the aggregation has grown so significantly?
Well, we have, and we don't necessarily see huge differences in the behavior at the spawning site. Here, Tom is just showing you a close-up of some of the healthy coral that's out at the aggregation site. Just sidebar while Tom is showing us this, you guys know that the coral looks a lot like a rock, like just a pretty rock, but in fact, coral is colonial animals that are all clones of each other. So they're animals that are polyps that feed. At the same time, they've also got zooxanthellae, or cellular organisms.
Symbiotic relationship. They receive about 80% of their energy budget from that, and the 20% from, because they are still animals that they feed with their polyps in the water column.
But they like plants, they photosynthesize.
Exactly.
Which is super cool. And here we're seeing a soft coral. There's lots of soft coral out there. You tend to see soft coral, again, just like sponges, with water that's got a lot of nutrients. So high flow areas are a great place to find these beautiful corals like you're seeing here. It really is a pretty dive site, although most of the time we don't get to enjoy the view because we got a lot of work to do. But to Todd's question about the changes.
Whoa, what's that?
What is that?
I hope you guys can see that at home.
Can you guys see this shadow in the? Oh my god, you have to see that. I've never seen that on the.
That's a hammerhead shark. Is it?
Yep.
What kind is that? Is that beautiful?
Looks probably a scalloped hammerhead shark, which is, you guys, this is not. We do see a lot of sharks out at the aggregation site, but I don't think I've ever seen a.
Look at that
Hammerhead. Wow, cool.
That looks like a large shark.
But this is a really good point. Yeah, we see a lot of sharks out at the aggregation site. It's part of this big healthy predator thing, right? So you get a lot of very large Nassau Grouper into one spot, and here come the sharks. Right?
Yeah, it's sort of like an ecosystem response to the aggregation. Last year we had over 12 sharks at the site at one time. It's like watching Blue Planet, because at one point we had on video where they took a Nassau Grouper on the fly.
Right. So the sharks should be thanking the Cayman Islands for protecting their food, basically, because they're out there to feed as well. And yeah, last year the Cayman Islands team, they got a really cool video of the sharks taking out Nassau Grouper, eating them while they're. So the Nassau Grouper, when they spawn, when they reproduce, they go up and they all release their gametes together in a big burst, and then the eggs go, and after about 24 hours they hatch, and so that all happens right at dusk. And so when you have that many fish releasing eggs at the same time, it gets really down, visibility drops because there's just so much to use that as a cover to attack fish. So they'll attack the spawning burst just as the fish are releasing their eggs.
But I'm confused. If we have too many sharks, aren't they just going to eat all the fish? Like, you don't want so many sharks out there, right?
Well, that's a great question. The short answer is no. The sharks aren't going to eat all of the fish because a shark has to eat all year, not just at the aggregation site. Right. So they may get a really great meal here in this very short window of time, but the whole rest of the year they still got to make a living. And so that whole rest of the year is what regulates the shark population. So you're never going to get a situation where you've got 1,000 sharks eating all of the Nassau Grouper, because this is only a very short window of time, and they've got to survive the rest of the year as well.
Yeah, it's just Mother Nature in motion.
And so we actually do want to see a lot of them out there. That shows us that the ecosystem is healthy.
Right, because top-level predators like Nassau Grouper are great, but they're not the only game in town. Sharks are really important, and they eat different things. They play a different role in the ecosystem. So in a sense, kind of like Croy said, it's important not just to have one top predator. You have to have all the parts of an ecosystem in order for it to function properly.
Wow, I can't believe we saw a hammerhead. Oh, here comes another grouper.
Yeah, so this is another example of a grouper enjoying a cleaning station. You can tell because he's right next to a sponge. And if you got real close, you see them getting a real clean over by these little tiny fish that are.
Are those
bouncing around.
sponges? Are they like coral, or is it a colonial animal like coral?
It's not quite the same as a coral, but it's similar in that they're filter feeders as well. So they make use of all of the material that's in the water, and they filter it.
Okay.
So different than a coral polyp, which are actually individual animals that have tentacles and nematocysts. The coral polyps are the ones that are actually capturing the animals. With the sponge, it's literally like a sponge in your sink. If you're pushing water through it, anything that's in the water will get caught in the sponge, and that's how the sponge feeds.
And they suck water in one direction and expel it the other way. It filtered the zooplankton, phytoplankton, microscopic little bits in the water that they feed on.
And it looks like we might be getting close to ending the dive here. Tom is looking up, and we see another diver that's slowly making their way back to the boat, which I suspect actually is what our divers that are in the water right now off the aggregation are starting to do as well. This is, and you can see there's a line. We have lots of different lines down all over the aggregation site that helps us to navigate at the aggregation site.
So now would be a great time if anyone has questions. I'm not going to be able to pull you up on the screen just right now, but you guys can have your teachers post a question in the chat, and we'd be happy to answer any of those questions. And we're waiting for just a few more minutes, as I believe we're going to have some more divers coming up, and I want you guys to see them. Is that one of our tagged fish there?
Yep, that's one of our tagged fish right now. Yeah, exactly. So,
and why do we see rope here along the bottom?
So that I was just saying that we use those we call them travel lines. Those lines connect the shelf edge to the different mooring pins, and we can use those lines in order to navigate as divers to and from the boat safely.
Awesome. And I just want to say hi to all the customers that are out there watching us. Red Bay Primary, welcome. West End Primary, welcome. So awesome to see you guys. To see you here too. And we have a question from Renaissance. Has there ever been a situation where a diver needed to use the extra regulator?
For breathing? We've been doing this for 20 years, so I imagine that there have been from time to time situations where we've needed to use a second regulator. I can't think of it to make sure that we are doing diving safely out here. That's why we have it, right? And it's important to note that we have lots of different safety equipment while we dive. We carry with us a safety sausage, which is we call it a sausage because it's a big long tube that when you inflate it, it turns into a very large, tall sausage that's brightly colored. So a diver can hold that up and indicate they're at the surface so we can see them at the boat. And the other thing we do is we carry with us these personal locator beacons. And okay, that's Tom saying we're all done.
All right. Hold on one second. I'm going to come back to you guys.
Anyway, those personal locator beacons are a fail-safe. Even if we calls to a satellite and reports their location, so we can always locate that diver if they're at the surface.
Wonderful. And it looks like we have another question from Aka at Renaissance. How does the growth of the grouper population affect people in other parts of the world?
That's a great question. One of the ways that it affects other people in the other parts of the world is because the Cayman Islands is one of the few places that has a large population of this species. It also represents one of the few places that can provide new babies to places other than the Caymans. So from time to time, those eggs that are produced by the grouper here get released, and the currents will take them to other locations in the Caribbean where those eggs and larvae will recruit, or they will fall out and become new babies in other locations. Most of the time, well, a lot of the time, those new babies go right back up in Cayman reefs based on work that we've done. We know that that's true. So the aggregation here, the reproduction that happens here, provides babies here, but sometimes it also provides babies in other locations.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so we provide here, the Caymans provides the potential for recovery of the species all throughout the Caribbean.
Wonderful question, Aka. And Myra has a question. How does maintaining the Nassau Grouper affect us and the ecosystem?
So maintaining that, so it affects you all in the Cayman Islands in two ways. One is by maintaining large, healthy grouper populations and top predators in general, you're maintaining an important part of the ecosystem. So all parts of the ecosystem are part of a healthy coral reef, including those top predators. So you're maintaining that, which is awesome. The other part is the human part. So having a lot of Nassau Grouper around means both that divers, probably some of you are divers, I bet a lot of you will be divers someday, and when you dive, you probably want to see Nassau Grouper, and because they're great. A lot of them are like puppies. You know, you'll be able to see them and swim really close to them and get a close-up view of a top predator. Having them on your reefs means that as a diver you get to see them. But the other thing is having them on a reef means that there is a fish to catch when people want to go out and put a nice piece of fish on a plate. And so that's all part of the importance of maintaining this healthy population, is so that there's fish to catch, fish to see, and fish to play their important role in the ecosystem.
Wonderful question, Myra. And Anna's question is, what did the scientists write on the record to record the counting and observation when they're counting fish? So what are they marking on that paper?
Yeah, so you saw that yellow slate, and there's a piece of paper that's not like normal paper. It's a little bit plasticky, and of course that's important because we're taking it underwater, and a regular piece of paper would fall apart.
Right.
But we just take a regular pencil, just like you would use in the classroom. Pencils work just great underwater. They may be surprising, but they do just great. So we take our pencil and paper down, and
so just a regular number 2 pencil
just
works
a
under the water.
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we take that down, and then we use our slate. And when people are doing the counts of 50 fish, we write down how many of the tags we see in that count of 50, and we have to write those down because we do many counts. It's hard to keep track of that unless we write it down, right?
All right, next question from Gregory. How long do you think it will take for the grouper fish to have normal numbers again?
That's a great question, and it seems like a simple question, right? That's really hard to answer because we don't know what normal is. Here on Little Cayman, and also on Cayman Brac, the population has been growing since protections, and that growth hasn't stopped yet. And so we don't know how many Nassau Grouper there should be. What is the maximum number of Nassau Grouper on this island? If you had asked me 15 years ago how many Nassau Grouper this island could hold, I would have never guessed that it could hold this many. And the reason we don't know is because throughout the Caribbean, no place has this many fish because all of the places that we know have been heavily fished at this point. So part of our research is to try and understand that very question. How many fish in a population makes for a healthy population? How many is enough? And that's a really important question, and one that we're still trying to answer.
Wonderful. Nico's question, how long did the fish stay spawning?
So that changed, actually. Early on, when there were relatively few fish, let's say maybe 1,000, they would spend a week or two at the spawning site. As the population has grown, they've spent less and less time at the spawning site. And we think that's because as the population has grown larger, it's become more organized. The spawning behavior has become more apparent. Right. The fish know what they're doing. They don't have to wander around the reef trying to find the spawning site. It's obvious where the spawning site is because that's where all the thousands of fish are. And so because they don't have to spend so long wandering around trying to find the spawning site, they get there faster, they get the job done, and they go home.
Awesome. Yeah, great question. Samar's question is, how does the grouper detect if it is a full moon so they can spawn?
This is a really important question,
Yes.
and one that we're still also working on. You notice this is a theme, right? There's lots of unanswered questions to this research, and that's part of the fun of the science that the Cayman Islands Department of Environment and the Grouper Project does, is we're trying to answer these basic questions about biology that haven't yet been answered. We do know, based on a period of time, is the coldest window of time here in the Caymans, and that's when they spawn. Now they do start to aggregate at the full moon, and they'll spawn sometime maybe as many as 3 to as much as 8 days after the full moon during either January or February. But how they're queuing on the moon is not clear.
So it's still a mystery.
It's still a mystery. We think it has to do. We think that they are registering light levels, but it hasn't been definitively proven yet. Hasn't been proven for sure.
All right. And we have another question. Has anyone, the divers, been attacked by sharks before?
No,
No shark attacks.
never any have attacked us when we've been diving. Fortunately, and sometimes it's a little worrying, but honestly, after the 20 years of doing this, never having been attacked once, we feel pretty safe, even though there are large sharks around. Interestingly, we have lost some equipment. Some animals have attacked our equipment. We had, for instance, a microphone we put underwater, and so fish, grouper, like birds, they sing to each other during reproduction, and so we put our microphone down to record those calls that the grouper are making. We had a turtle come and bite our hydrophone. It just decided that it was tasty, so it took a bite out of it and it crushed it. And so we lost that hydrophone because the turtle decided it was hungry and needed a hydrophone snack.
So I see, Ella, if you had to guess, how many sharks have you seen?
This year, I think last year, they said they saw 12 sharks. But usually we see more sharks as we move along in the spawning window. So as they get closer to spawning time, when they're releasing their eggs, that's when the sharks really start to show up, because that's when the sharks have the best opportunity to eat the fish.
Right. Great question. And Avery, do groupers approach the divers on their own? And if so, how much are the divers allowed to interact?
Yeah. So their Nassau Grouper are really fun in that they, some of them become very, very friendly to divers. And you've probably seen video of a friendly grouper. Maybe if you're a diver, you've got a chance to dive with a friendly grouper. And by friendly, I mean really friendly. They will swim up to you. They will find you. They will seek you out, and they will hang with you for the whole dive. And it looks for all the world like they're asking you to scratch them. They'll come up. They'll open their gill cover. They're looking for interaction. There are a few grouper that are down there, and they'll just hang out with divers the whole time. Sometimes we don't want them to, because we're trying to get counts of all of the fish, not just the few friendly fish, and they won't leave you alone. Right? But a lot of the grouper are not that friendly, and so we try and stay away from them as best we can, so that we don't disturb their normal reproductive behavior. The last thing that we want to do is mess with this critical period of time when they're releasing their eggs. That's the most important thing, is to let them do what they do in this window of time, let them reproduce, so we get a new baby group for the next year.
Awesome. And I see Kaden has a question. How long have you been doing the live streams and educating people about the work that you are doing? Well, I'll answer that for you. We've been doing this for now 10 years. Kaden, great question. Evelyn's question, I'm going to ask Troy this, or Dr. McCoy. What types of sharks are out here?
So the main sharks we see are the gray reef sharks. Last year was mostly seen in years. However, we've occasionally there's dark sharks that is nice. And the mainly gray reef sharks, first year we've seen a hammerhead in a long time. And it's very
that's unique, right?
Yeah, it's very
I've never seen
special
that.
in many ways. The system responded as Mother Nature intends for it to be. With lots of sharks being around here, some of the most beautiful creatures around here.
Awesome. All right, I think we've got time for one more question. How do the groupers know when it is time to spawn? And how do they know when it's a full moon?
That's an age-old question.
It is an age-old question, and I mean, this question's been asked every year, and we don't actually know the precise answer.
Yeah, but getting back to the previous one, I just wanted to mention it, and there's supposed to be whale sharks out there that filter feed eggs, and that's part of the food chain, but we don't participate in the oceanic side of it, but I'm almost sure that whale sharks are out there. We occasionally have seen them around the island during spawning, but they're known to be there. And timing of the spawn is, we've done a fair bit of research trying to figure out the patterns involved with it, with following where the eggs go to. But the night leading up to spawn, we have a tendency for all of the drifters that we put out that follow the eggs with the Nassau Grouper and the Nassau Grouper release. They go in all different directions very unpredictably. But on the night of spawn, eddies form, which are like circular current patterns that we can only guess that it just keeps, for our hypothesis, in fact, that it just keeps the eggs close to shore, that the baby's being born stays here. So we're sort of like how a human population is, when you have kids that are born like on each island that grow up there, become population, it's sort of do not understand it. We're still doing a lot of research that are trying to figure that exact cue as to what triggers them to spawn on that particular night at that aggregation. But it's usually coupled with these eddies that form even near shore and strong currents to disperse their eggs properly.
No worries. All right, you guys, it looks like our boat is now back on the move and we're heading back into shore, so we're going to call it a day. I want to thank you all for being here today. If we didn't get a chance to answer your questions, you know that you can email me or you can post them on the blog. I'm going to throw a couple of schools up here online so you guys can see yourselves. Hey, guys out there, it's so good to see you. Thank you for joining us on the live stream today. I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time from the Grouper Moon Project. Take care, everybody.